Hey there! Before we start the video, I just want to remind everyone that I'm currently hosting a combo contest for Smash Ultimate. You can see all of the general rules on the screen right now, but I do go a bit more in depth in the description. I've also put the Google form in the description for you to submit it in. If you have any questions regarding this, feel free to contact me either on Twitter or on my Discord server. So let's just get right on with the facts. I'm going to start off this video with a few facts I, myself, have been hoarding for a while. First, let's talk about the bunny hood. Did you know that the bunny hood will give you a boost if you use it just as it runs out? Compare here for yourself. Normally your max height with the bunny hood is about here. But when I jump the moment it despawns, I managed to reach all the way up there. And still talking about jump boosts, if you do a rising aerial when you have the screw attack on, you'll gain even more distance than usual. It seems the momentum from your screw attack sticks around, even if you cancel it with an aerial. So in a sense, screw attack itself makes you jump higher. You can compare these jump heights. And talking about canceling momentum, you can also do something called crouch canceling. This mechanic isn't anywhere near as prevalent in this game as it was in Melee, but it is still present. Doing so will indeed reduce the knockback you take quite a bit, even if it's not as good as, say, shielding. But what about something you can't shield, and something that's too risky to try and dodge? Yes, for this fact, it's a bit more of a tip than anything else. And I guess it's not really as pointless as one might hope, but whatever, no one even cares. Normally, Dragoon will kill someone at 0% from the center of the stage, and it's not a move that they can shield, and even trying to dodge it is risky. However, if you crouch cancel it, you'll be able to live at 0%. If your character has a bad recovery, chances are you may die anyways, but if you're not confident that you'll be able to dodge it, then this is an option. Oh, and to get back on the topic of pointless facts, Terry, Ken, and Ryu will all turn around to face wherever you're aiming the Dragoon. Also, one thing I got curious to test was to see if Terry could cancel his normals into a special move when he was using an item. And it appears you cannot cancel, say, a side tilt with the home run bat into a special. Next, when I was testing Ridley once, I noticed how the gunship from the cutscene sticks around in the background for a while. It made me think about what happens if Zero Suit Samus uses her final smash immediately afterwards. After testing it though, it appears there'll just be two gunships on the screen for a time. Moving on to facts given to me. Rebecca Wolbach tells me that you can insta-kill someone during Zoroark's attacks. For this, I just like to use Whack or Thwack. And it's true, they will die during Zoroark's swipes, yet Zoroark will continue swiping. In fact, if you manage to get the KO early enough, you'll be able to see Zoroark follow them as they respawn, swiping the entire time. It's unlikely they'll lose their invincibility during these swipes, but those swipes do have a hitbox. And funny enough, Zoroark will always go back to the middle before the final hit. Next up, Nick Octo states that there's some kind of weird knockback given to Ryu if you use Focus Attack at the same time as Kirby's Inhale. At lower percents, it may not be very obvious that this is knockback. It might just seem like a weird grab release thing. But at higher percents, it'll somehow kill. But of course, I mean really high percents. And this seems to be close to frame perfect anyhow. Speaking of Kirby, HotRod4435 informs me of a certain phenomenon with Kirby and Squad Strike. If you gain someone's copy ability, and that person ends up getting KO'd, well, you can kiss your copy ability goodbye, as it'll disappear alongside your opponent. I'm not entirely sure why they decided to do this, since it doesn't happen for, say, doubles matches, but it does happen here. In my last video, I went over every single non-special move name given through the tips. However, our particular fact I was told by Color Wheel Hero says that the tip about Alf uses the wrong picture. You see, Alf's default skin is the blue variation, the one he appears in his game. However, for his tip, well, he's in his green alt. As far as I'm aware, this is the only case of a fighter not being in their quote-unquote default costume for a tip of theirs. I'm kind of stuck as to how this happened, but it's whatever. Alright, speaking of getting stuck. Haven't you always wanted to softlock yourself in Smash? I'm certain you have. Well, luckily for you, I have two ways you can do such a thing. The first method is from Cat Lover 2, involving a cannon and a switch, and that's all. All you've got to do to start it is to just get hit into the cannon. You'll continuously bounce off the switch and back into the cannon, unable to act for even a single frame. And unfortunately, outside help doesn't seem possible, as hard as I tried. No matter what, you can't escape from this. And for the second method, Mr. Hugfang27 describes what happens when you get your shield broken below wind that is moving directly upwards. When your shield breaks, you'll hover at the peak of the wind. During this time, you're unable to input anything at all, so you can't drift left or right. I found it best to use the 100 wind speed, since some characters may be heavy enough to fall through the wind at any speed lower. You can counter this by having someone else come up and push you off, but this can be easily prevented with a few walls. And, since the opponent has invincibility after a shield break, there's nothing you can do. And so, with these two things in mind, I made myself a nice little softlock stage. I have the stage ID in the top left corner, and the thing about this stage is that once you enter, you cannot leave, thanks to this one-way portal. And once you're in, you've got a fast updraft throughout the entire room, meaning if your shield gets broken, you're done for. And what's worse is that, even if your shield doesn't get broken, if you happen to land in any of these cannons, well, you've been soft-locked. Playing on this with no timer will essentially guarantee that someone has to reset their switch. But hey, don't blame me if this happens. Blame both CatLover2 and Mr. Hugfang27 for telling me these things. Speaking of strong winds, to move on to a less harmful tip, Sailor Shy Guy mentions how the strong wind immunity spirit does not affect the gust jar. And sure enough, this is true. I just have no idea why it is. I don't know what's more wind than literal wind, but the spirit won't work here. It will work in my custom stage though, so I guess that removes at least one of the soft locks. Oh, it also doesn't work against Giratina's wind attack, but I guess this is a little bit more understandable since it's not really wind. Also, side fact, but did you know that you can pocket the gust jar wind? It seems to be only one burst, but it's still pretty neat considering you can't actually reflect it. And while we're talking about spirits, Douglas Taylor informs me that using Inkling's Roller in a spirit battle with an altered floor will not consume any ink. I tested this out with the sleep-inducing floor here, and this is actually true. Using Roller will not cause the ground to be inked due to the altered floor effect, so it does not consume any ink. There is a limit to how long you could hold out Roller at one time, but you don't have to worry about losing anything. However, as stated by Uncomfortably Close, the same thing can happen on Mario Maker. And sure enough, using Roller here will not ink the ground, meaning there won't be any ink to slow the opponents down. And, of course, no ink is consumed. At first I had no idea why this was the case, and I just assumed it was because Mario Maker is sort of like a 2D stage. But if you use Roller on both Flat Zone X and Duck Hunt, it will ink the ground, and therefore consume ink. Also, another interesting thing about ink, as stated by Ryan Silvershield, is that you cannot apply ink to an opponent in training mode if fixed damage is turned on. But if they're already inked when you turn on fixed damage, the ink will still fade. So it's not like it freezes the state of the effect, it just doesn't allow you to apply it. Back to spirits, Astral Eradicator says that, much like walking and running, the short hop scales differently than the full hop. What this means is, if I add plenty of lightweight spirits and whatnot, my short hop can go just as high, if not higher, than my full hop. I'm making sure my short hops are definitely short hops by hitting both jump buttons at the same time. The difference is pretty slight with Shulk, but it's very obvious with Terry. Try it out with your main to see how they get affected. Still on spirits, SoupyMilk619 tells me how an opponent inside of Mimikyu will lose their spirit defense when attacked from the outside. Normally when someone is caught in Mimikyu, the damage dealt to them gets basically halved. On someone with no spirits, Ganondorf's Volcano Kick does about 28%. And when they're in Mimikyu, it does about 13%. Versus someone with spirits though, Volcano Kick here does about 10%. So you should expect it to do about 4 or 5% in Mimikyu, since that's about half the normal damage. However, it still does about 13%, just like when the opponent had no spirits on, which is actually even more damage than when the opponent was outside of Mimikyu. So yeah, I can safely agree that Mimikyu will remove the opponent's defense buffs from outside attacks. For this last spirit fact, Birbo has informed me of a funny interaction involving the item pickup spirit in Snake's cardboard box. To explain what the spirit does, it's the DLC Phantom Thieves spirit, and it makes it so you can automatically pick up any item nearby. With Snake's cardboard box, you can not only pick it up once he's used it, but it seems to be the only item in the game that you can directly take from someone else's hands. So if two people with this auto pickup spirit are nearby when Snake uses his cardboard box, it doesn't last forever unfortunately, and either of the snakes can cancel this at any time. So unfortunately, it's not another soft lock. But this interaction alone speaks 1,000 words. Especially as Snake just sits there, as if he's still in his box. Also, keep in mind that Snake doesn't seem to be able to pick up his own box, so you need at least 3 players present in order to do this. Actually, the rest of my facts I have for this video are from the same person who suggested the last one, Burbo. To start off, apparently Rollout is able to do more damage when it's going downhill. On this flat surface, the move seems to do about 19%. If we tilt the platform and use Rollout going uphill, it'll do a lot less damage at 11%, and it'll barely go anywhere. And when we go down, it'll do a whopping 33%, even when you barely charge it at all. I wanted to see if this extra damage came specifically from going downhill, or if it just depended on the speed Puff was going. So I set a block of wind at max speed in the direction she's going, and it only did 1% more than the original flat surface test. But this 20% is the same damage as using Rollout directly next to Mario on said flat surface. And when I paired going downhill with the wind, the damage didn't actually really change. So it really does seem that this is almost exclusive to going downhill. Next up, apparently when Wii Fit changes size during her Sun Salutation charge, the Sun energy itself will not change size. It'll be normal once she shoots it though. To offer my own explanation, I think the two entities are kind of separate when it's being charged. A good example is how when you're charging the move, you can absorb it as Ness or Lucas. Or yes, Mii Gunner I guess. You won't actually heal anything, but it'll remove the charge completely. You can also absorb it with Game & Watch's bucket, but the final product won't do much damage or knockback. And you cannot seem to pocket it. Lastly, a neat little fact that I thought would be really cool to show you all is that in order to KO the Metroid Assist Trophy, you have to freeze it first. It won't take any damage normally, but like in the games, it's susceptible to ice. If it's frozen, it doesn't take much to KO it. Now I know this fact isn't very hidden, but I think it's very cool nonetheless. But of course, feel free to complain down in the comments about how obvious this was. I'll be sure to think you're not only cool, but you're also very smart. Anyhow, that'll wrap it up for this video. Later today, I'll be streaming for many hours to celebrate my birthday. We'll be doing a ton of things like some item combos, quick play, listening to music and what have you. You should stop by if it's not too late. And if it is too late, you can watch all of my stream VODs by becoming a member to the channel. Just click on the join button, it's only $1.99 a month. And you'll get a snazzy badge by your name and access to members only community posts. With that, stay casual, and I'll see you later.